Welcome everyone. I think either will open this focus group and then I will follow up after his few words.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry if there is a bit of noise around me. But I'm glad we kept this ongoing despite the summer and despite many of you are maybe thinking of vacation or like me already enjoying vacations. To introduce myself, I'm the global head of digital at Ferring. I'm with Hyder, and I work in as a reproductive medicine and maternal health topic now for quite a while, 5 years for me with Ferring, and it's a fascinating therapeutic area to work with. I'm glad after 15 years in pharma, I ended up in a therapeutic area where the focus is to build life and not to decay or to push back symptoms or even sometimes death. So it's a really a topic that is there to my heart. And if you deep dive that journey, it sounds so easy to just think it's for many people building a family is something that's just normal. We all hear about contraception when we are young, preservatives, contraceptive pills and so on. And then when we start to grow and build, relationships, it's just so natural to think that the product of building a family will be natural and easy. And it's not a smooth ride for everyone. And when you go deep into that journey, and maybe some of you are experiencing this or experienced this in their past, you'll see that it's not just a physiological issue. It's not just a man or woman issue. There is a huge emotional roller coaster. And even here, I represent Ferring here, and we are a drug manufacturer. But please believe me that as a leader in that field, my company here is way beyond thinking that everyone deserves to build a family, and everyone deserves to build a family, of course, the natural way, but also to have all the means and the access to build a family with all the solutions at their disposal. So I think the focus group you'll have here and the way you will think about it is the first piece of the puzzle. And what we see missing is awareness. People just are clueless about that journey when they embark on it. And that makes it the most tremendous issue we have worldwide. The common denominator of all societies today is the lack of information and awareness on fertility and infertility issues. And we'd like to first of all, deep dive with you to understand what are those drivers that creates, an awareness on those topics, why, and how can we do something about it? Because the more people will push for access and the more people will push for removing stigma, taboos around those topics, the better societies will have and the better we will find solutions together. So here, the topic is not about finding, data solution, tech solutions, and jumping on building digital solutions. No, it's to really take a step back, thinking, but based on this journey, when someone wants to have a family and building, their own family, having a kid, what will prevent them to get robust information, trustworthy information? Who are the stakeholders in the past that are supposed to give that information, and who are the ones that are not giving it and should, and who are potentially newcomers that will be people we need to rely on to give that type of support. So that was the idea of building that first brick. There will be other focus groups, so obviously we count on you to join us for the ride to other focus groups as we are building that whole funnel to support those potential parents till healthy mother and healthy baby come at the end, right? But it's all about the in-between moments, the journey. How can we make it a smooth ride for those potential parents? So that was my kind of sharing intro of what I've been working on with my colleagues at Ferring for the last 4 or 5 years. That also what inspired me to wake up every day to work and help millions of people get babies in their families.
Thanks, Aider. Thank you so much. So my name is Marzia Massignani. I will be your co-host today with Aider, and we will run with your help this focus group. So I will start giving you like a small intro on the agenda and on the rules that will be applied to the Miro board. I hope you already joined the board. If not, there is the link in the chat. And from there you can access. You can put either your name or a nickname as you wish. But afterwards, we will ask you to do a small exercise where you actually will input your name, surname, and either your job or the reason why you decided to join this focus group. So after the intro, we will do a small exercise, as I said, just to test the board. After, we will divide into breakup rooms, more or less 5 people per group. And we will do 5-minute work per question. There are 5 key questions that we identify to start with. But of course, the board is also open for you, to input more on the right-hand side, if you like. So I hope you all were able to join the Miro board, because I see like 9-10 people only there. Yes, I can add the link again. So here the link. So the first 30 minutes will be to discuss in groups the 5 questions and end up with a summary of 2 minutes where you basically consolidate your thought through the 5 questions into like a sentence. Then we will regroup together. Each group will decide one team member that will expose the idea that they found, the trend that they found in summarizing the 5 questions, and this person will share with everybody else. And there we will have a space to discuss all together the findings. Afterwards, we go back to breakup rooms, where actually we will group with other people, different people from the first session. And we will have the time to add more inputs that should arise from a further brainstorming. And at the end, we will regroup together and basically doing the closing remarks and try to summarize everything that was discussed today. So if you are in Miro, you will see at the top, let's say, a blue box with the agenda, so that you have more or less an idea of the flow, and you know how, let's say, all the session will go through time-wise. Then on the left-hand side, there is an empathy board. This is like a board with images that should help stimulate our brain and stimulate, let's say, the creativeness around this topic. If you're happy to add a picture, do it, because it will help for sure also other member of the focus group. Then moving back to the right-hand side, there is another bubble, a yellow bubble, where it would be great to have your name on a post-it, plus, as I said, either your job or the reason why you decided to join this focus group. This will also help us know exactly who was like part of the focus group together, as in the end, we are trying to generate a book out of this workshop and the other 2 workshops that we will have in the future. And of course, you will be like co-authoring the book. Then if you move a little bit further down, there is
Marcia, sorry, this is
yes.
From whom I just wondering, would it be possible if you share your screen, probably?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, to see where should we be looking at, because I'm a bit lost now. Sorry about that.
No, you're right. Okay, could you see my screen?
Not yet, but it's coming up. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, okay, here is the agenda. Here is the empathy board. Here is where you should input your name and role or the reason why you decided to join. And when you move below, there is this board. Depending on your group, you will be input below the key question. Those are the 5 questions. The first one asks, in your opinion, which pros can you identify in being aware of your fertility status? The second one is and cons. The third question is about when you would start to talk about the fertility tracking or the fertility journey in the life of a woman or in general. The fourth question is more about discussing how to involve society into this topic, which as of today is left a little bit, let's say, and it is not really well controlled and is not well shared. And the fourth question is about who should lead the conversation in terms of like generating awareness. And then on the far right side, there is another board where you can add whatever you think is important to take into consideration. All the input that, of course, are not captured by those 5 questions, and everything that you believe is absolutely important when talking about awareness generation. As I said, you will be divided into groups, and here each group will take a spot depending on the one that you will be assigned to. And Barbara will kindly help us assign you to each room.
Yes.
So do you have any question, anything that is not clear? I can see that everybody is already input in the yellow box here to add all of the names of participants. Any question? No. I give it for granted that you're familiar with Miro, but if you're not, this is like an interactive board, and all of the tools are on the left-hand side here, where you can basically add either figure or like shapes or post-it. To make it simple, if you add post-it, which is this icon, a sticky note, is basically quite intuitive. You click, then you put the post-it with whenever, like wherever you like. You click twice, and you basically can input your message in there. If you're not happy with it, you can reselect and delete it. Okay, so if there are no questions for the moment, no problem. If you have further question afterwards, just put it in the chat, in the Zoom chat. And I think Barbara, we can start with the rooms.
Perfect. Then I'll send you all in the first breakout room. It's going to be more or less 30 minutes, and I'll send you a quick message when it's time more or less to come back to the main room. See you soon.
Thanks. So welcome back. We were actually going through a nice discussion, and that we, of course, we can continue here. I think we are all back, right, Barbara?
Yes, we are.
Okay, cool. So what I hope you had the time like to create, to generate like a 2-minute summary of what you had in your, in all the post-it that you input for your group. And you also identify one person per group that can actually share this before we start like the discussion. So who wants to start for the group 1? Did you identify one person in your group that can talk?
I can take it. I was trying to summarize it at the end of the conversation. Let me just try. to escape to music again. So here, hopefully you can hear me. So with a group, I mean, we started to, I mean, we had difficulties to grasp how to answer the question. It was pretty, like, quite vague and.
Haider, we cannot hear you.
In general, so it was a big topic, but we tried to who can be stakeholder, really embed awareness, where should this happen, and what goods can we take out of it. So we discussed about the role of the
we cannot hear you either.
Maybe someone else can take over.
Yeah,
system
exactly.
to bring the fertility managers of not family. So we felt that that was missing. The second body that can help for us was.
Either could you sorry, because we cannot hear you, and so we cannot follow your thinking. So what we can do, we can wait until you get a good spot, and we can like maybe move to.
Is it now? Is it now better or no?
Yeah, a bit better. You sound a little bit metallic, but at least we can hear you.
Okay, so I was trying to say we talked about the education system to try to bring fertility awareness earlier on to our kids and teenagers and teach them about as much as project family and family planning than contraception. Then the second body we identify were governments, where we feel they have a role and they should have an interest about building more awareness because that has direct impact on the GDP. If you look at the growth, and we talked about Japan, for example, who is doing something. We talked about Israel, who is doing something. So we felt that there is a huge need for them to move on this. Then we talked also about corporations, enterprises that are already doing awareness. In the US, you have social fertility benefits to attract talents, but this is not a commoditized attributes for corporation across the world. So we have work to do there. And then we also discussed about the role of the first line of the medical practice, where they don't really bring you that when you go for contraception. They don't really teach you about family planning. They just focus on contraception, and that topic is somehow reserved to a specialist. So maybe we should also bring back this. And then we touched upon it very slightly the role of community pillars in communities, for example, such as in South America or in Africa, the people who influence communities, not in a scientific way, but more in let's say in an old school fashion to tell people where to go, when to go. That could.
We lost you again. Okay, so I assume you were mentioning, Haider was mentioning the fact that there is, of course, a cultural gap. And of course, wherever you go, you can have family influencer actually that can, push for family planning in one direction or in another. And of course, also in the community, people that somehow, control how families do their plans. And indeed, in Latin America, this is quite strong, for example, but I assume it's not in the only country. Okay, so we can move to group number 2. Who wants to speak for group number 2?
Yeah, I'll speak if no one else wants to.
Thank you.
We didn't nominate anyone. But yeah, so we worked our way through. We didn't quite get to the last question, even though we kind of covered that as we went along. So yeah, our kind of conversation landed on that we think it should be a holistic approach, and it should be from basically every touch point in your life, everybody you're speaking to, whether that's education in school, whether it's family, the media that you consume, and yeah, along with your GP or gynecologist. But it should be a topic that's spoken about everywhere and anywhere. And then the hope is that the misinformation or the certain lenses that come through from each of those touch points is kind of filtered, and people can make their own decisions about whether the information that they're getting is right for them, and create a kind of personalized plan. Cheryl in our group also kind of came up with the idea of having somebody who is a coach, who looks after those conversations and helps you work through some of the information that you're getting to create something that's more personal to you. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I don't know if anyone else from the group wants to chime in.
Cheryl, do you want to speak? Because you're on mute.
Nope, I thought she did a great job. She covered it really well.
Okay, I have actually a question now. Since you mentioned information, do you think that information available are, as of today, are backed up enough by science, and are they supported really like with a good scientific foundation?
I would say it very much depends on the source. I'd say most people would agree that research into women's health is nowhere near where we need it to be. There's serious gaps in the research, but then also, I guess, if we're talking about non-official sources of information, so when you're talking to, we talked a lot about parents, and how it's likely that your parents didn't necessarily have huge fertility issues based on the fact that you exist in the world. So they can give you a very kind of biased opinion on your journey. And again, I guess there's risk of bias in every touch point, hopefully less so from the healthcare bodies, but yeah, it's the world we live in.
Thank you. Okay, now the group number 3.
Yeah, we didn't nominate nobody, but I don't know, ladies, if any of you want to go, otherwise I can summarize it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we actually touch base on all the questions. So I'm trying to summarize. So definitely it's a big yes in terms of making a woman aware around her fertility. And because that will allow you not only plan your motherhood if you want to become a mother in the future, but also career planning, or if you don't find the right person to become a mother with, you can wait and why not take some precautions like freezing your eggs, for example, right? We believe that information should be delivered. We didn't identify those big cons around that awareness, except that might cause and might stress women, right? If there is bad news, but if there's bad news, then it's more important that you know about it. In terms of when to talk about it, I think it was clear that we believe it's as early as we can, and probably delivering messages as women starts growing up, right? Like it's different when you talk to a 13-year-old than a 16-year-old, right? But definitely this conversation should start happening quite early, at home, at schools, at primary care, and of course at your gynecologist, right? But it's true that there is very little time spent in primary care to talk about fertility overall. Then it was about, definitely there's a question around the trustful sources, right? And yeah, so I'm very close to the topic because I'm one of the founders of Womb, and basically we deliver content which is very tailored to the woman, but also all the content that we deliver is actually validated by a specialist, right? So we think it's important, and definitely the primary care, again, it's a great source, right, to help on women, and funding R&D and technological products is another way of doing it, right? And communities, right? Our experience, and we all agree that community play a big have a big play, because women usually they feel guilty, they feel stressed, and they shouldn't be feeling like that. So mental health is important, but connecting with other women going through a similar situation is something that we've seen. It's helpful because sometimes they don't even talk not with their mothers, right, or sister or friends, because they're a bit ashamed of what they're going on, and they shouldn't, right? And
it's like a taboo at the end, no?
Exactly, it's a taboo. Like when you, it's like mental health, right? Fertility.
Indeed.
When you break a leg, you tell everybody what's the story about, right? And what happened to you. But when you can't have kids, right, or you're suffering from a mental condition, you don't talk about it. So it's about dropping taboos, right? And basically it's still, there's a lot of things to do, right, in terms of that. And in terms of who should be talking about it, we would say it's like there are different players, even couples going through that, right? It's like, again, dropping those taboos, but definitely the governments, the society. It's very difficult to find a strong proposition from a social standpoint, right, around fertility, and the topic is not there. It's not being approached properly, and the birth rates are dropping, right, in some countries. So it's a strong enough, right, topic to talk about. And conversation should be coming from different ways, and communications, right? And for example, we discussed this, like you see women getting pregnant at 45, and you see like, oh great, like she's a celebrity, she has a baby, great. Yeah, but probably she struggled a lot, right, to get and it sends like the wrong message, right? So that's why communication is important. Where this communication is coming from, it's important. And also, what are the measures, right? If you think about budgets around fertility, public funding, it's really funny, right? It's non-existent. So yeah, this is more or less the topics. I don't know if you ladies want to add something else.
It's interesting what you said, because somehow it also highlights the fact that there are two streams. One is awareness for the new generation, which should imply a no taboo situation, because they should basically grow up talking about this and everything that gravitate around the woman fertility in a very normal and open way. And the second one is actually break the existing taboo for our current, let's say, generation, let's say 20 years old upward, I would say. So there are actually two different streams that probably needs to be taken.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then number 4, we have our champion because we decided. So Caroline, do you want to share?
Yeah, so we were having a debate actually, and I was playing the devil's advocate. Of course, I agree with you that the more information we have and the more empowered we are. But yeah, we were discussing the fact that the kind of information that we can provide women with when we do a fertility checkup is quite limited because it's not predictive. And so, for example, even if we give you your AMH measurement and it's very low, what are you going to be able to do with that information? It's not gonna help you really decide for your future, because it doesn't mean that you are infertile. It doesn't mean that you are getting closer to menopause. So it doesn't really tell you anything. Just tells you that you have a low ovarian reserve, that you might have had a very low ovarian reserve in the past, even 10 years ago, and that might stay like that for the 10 next years. So there's a lot of limits in terms of the kind of information you can provide women with. But overall, we all agree that it's a good thing to do fertility checkups, because it's a perfect opportunity to explain to women how their bodies work and what are their risk factors.
Yeah, and I would also add the fact that this should be explained also to young men, because they would be empowered also to understand a little bit better how we function in and why we take certain decision, and why we arrive at a certain point where somehow we look for partners that have the same view. They are looking into the same direction in terms of family planning and all of that, because the more you age, the more you get stressed about this topic. Yeah. And of course, if you don't know for how many years still you will be fertile, as you said, Caroline, you cannot be sure, but probably you can have an indication. And maybe like if you get an alert that your ovarian reserve is getting really low, you can freeze some eggs, for example. I mean, you can take action. But of course, when you go into that direction, then it comes also the economical part that has an impact, and not everybody can afford. So bring this theme to government and to like governmental bodies can probably empower families and couples to have a more like a long-term vision and plan accordingly. And and do you want to share also what the rest that we said that we put down in our the pros and cons when like because there was also some interesting.
From what I could see on the board, I think the majority of participants think that we should talk about that quite early, around 16, like when the period starts. So I don't know how it is in every country, but I know that in France, we talk about biology and how reproductive systems work, but we don't really spend a lot of time on fertility, like on the biological clocks, whether it's for men or women, and the impact of having children late. We should probably do that. And we should probably do that more often. So maybe at 16, a bit later on, and even later on. And general information should be available a bit everywhere at your GP's practice, gynecologists, like validated information that you can really rely on.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you so much. And about who should be like leading this conversation. I mean, do you have, in general, an opinion on who should be leading? I mean, should be because in the beginning there was the second group made a comment about the fact that there should be an holistic approach with really touch points everywhere, which is absolutely relevant, and but it is also very general. So, I mean. What is your opinion? Where should be lie? Should be the gynecologist, to talk about this, for example, like they do the smear test in order to prevent a cancer. Should they also talk about this, or should it be something that comes from the government that has campaigns? What is your opinion on this?
I can one again talk about it. Sorry, just because I've been doing some research in France and it's only about France, and I think there's a huge cultural question behind that question. So, for example, I think it should be the role of gynecologists to have that conversation. But in France, there's a real issue between gynecologists and patients. Patients are not really loyal to the gynecologist, so they don't really feel comfortable having that intimate conversation with this kind of doctors, so they don't talk about it. So even if it looks like the good solution, practically speaking, it's not the right solution because there is not this dialogue between patients and doctors. So I don't know how is it in other countries, but that would be interesting to know.
I can tell, I mean, I'm not actively working in this sector. What I can tell you is that as a patient, I am 39. And my gynecologist, she never mentioned to me anything about that. Zero. I'm living in Switzerland. And when I asked her, what she said to me was, but no worries. If there are issues, I mean, you see that you don't get pregnant, blah, 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 you come back in a year and then we talk. So that was the answer. I was like, okay, that's a nice hint, for the workshop. Yeah, because I mean, indeed, no, it's I test her because I was like, what she say to me? Because and zero, input zero. Maybe it's just one case, okay? So it doesn't talk for the category in terms of health professional, but still, I was surprised because it's aligned with what I heard.
Yeah, what I heard a lot also is coming from doctors is the best way for you to know about your fertility is to try to conceive.
Yeah, thank you. I feel really empowered like that.
Maybe this is our moment as femtech becomes more widely known about. Maybe this is what femtech is all about, is being that voice and creating the campaigns, because we aren't the medical community, some of us, we aren't the government, because I think that women's bodies have been politicized in a lot of countries. I know I'm in the US, and people are always politically fighting over our bodies. And I think that we just have to rise above that. And I think one of the things is a lot of times our physicians don't have the kind of time to also be educators. You know, they just want to hear what's going on with you and then give you a diagnosis and get you a treatment plan versus really finding out. So I think this is why femtech has become a hot topic. I think this is what we're here for. I think it's us. I think it's not the government or educators. It's those of us that are out here innovating and trying to empower ourselves. So I think we need to empower each other.
This is exactly what I wanted to say. So, sorry, but who should talk about it? It should be women, right? So before I started working at Breathe Ido, I didn't know anything about the cycle of my friends or fertility of my friends. And I'm 28 now, and I do have 2 friends who already got a baby. And afterwards, they told me, yeah, but it was hard, and it took us 2 years. But you just hear it afterwards, right? And I mean, I do live in Austria. We do not talk about rough times that much. That might be a bit easier in the US or something like that. But I think, yes, it should be the government. Yes, it should be the media, but it should also be us women.
Yeah, which makes absolutely sense. But I like, what you said, what Cheryl said about the femtech movement, that can be the voice, and it can then generate actions. And, for instance, I'll give an example from another sector that is more my sector. I work in oral care. And in order to make the oral care being back into the agenda of WHO, what let's say, the companies together with the professional association did, they created a manifesto where everybody signed off like 12 important points explaining why oral care was really, really important to be pushed back into the agenda of the WHO. And indeed, after like 5 years of pushing, presenting, representing, pushing, etc., a month ago, it was actually announced that there is going to be like an action plan in place by 2022, and then they will deploy it until 2025. So probably we need like to create a movement that goes bottom up, involving, of course, like professionals as well as a femtech, that with their media power, they can also get involve more every woman, basically, because it's important for everybody. And I would say even beyond, every person, because women fertility is the reason why we exist, right? So it's kind of important for the future of humanity in general. So it should be part of the agenda. It should be like probably reimbursed. It should be wherever there is reimbursement system for healthcare, for example, or like considered into insurance and so on. So there is a lot of angles that should be taken, but probably as you all said, there should be like a collective voice coming from different angles that gets together and create a powerful, one unique aligned voice. Okay, so anybody else wants to comment on this?
Just something to add to that thinking. I think you also have to adapt you have that depending on the countries you are thinking of, because for example in the US health is very expensive, so a lot of things can come from femtech and the femtech industry, where women would be happy to pay for a service and get access to that information. But in some other countries, for example France, where health is free, having access to health cannot be you cannot pay for health. So it's really difficult to put a light on femtech startups, because if you decide to create a company, you need to it needs to be sustainable, so you need to get money from it. But the question of the business model is getting very difficult, because it has to deal with health, and health has to be free in France. So I agree that it should come from a very strong voice, but this voice, I think, should be different depending on which country you want to provide this information. Because it's not always possible to use the same voice for every country.
Makes absolutely sense. Absolutely. Yeah, so I assume that as it was for oral health, this could go from like a WHO, for example, then down to the local government, but with plans, with communication plans. And in our group, one of the comments that we had, I think Elisa made it, was that there should be probably different type of communication that depending the age, in order like to modulate the tone, modulate the message, and so on. So I wonder whether, having a campaign that is widely spread on TV could be probably too much. It should be probably more targeted, but something to think about. Okay, so we will go back to the breakup rooms. We will be in different groups this time, so that we can continue the discussion for each part. And but in this case, what would be the best is that if you can crystallize a thinking into really a 2-minute summary of your ideas, and a little bit of thought about everything that is not included in there when thinking of awareness generation. And this make basically comments into the green board on the right hand side. There is already a post-it there asking about culture. Okay, so Barbara, if you can send us back.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Great, I think we're all here. We lost someone
on the way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We are at the end anyway. I know that either, unfortunately, he texted me that since he's on the beach, unfortunately the sun make his mobile phone last less. So okay, so it's not an issue. But just for you to know that he has to jump off. I don't know if we have one person still per group, but maybe we can try. So for group number 1, we had somebody that was put in group number 1.
From the original group number 1 or the new group?
The new group. Or Nancy, if you are from group number 2 or 4, you can speak also. Because I think we're such a small group now that is quite easy.
Yeah, I think my teammates are here, Sharon and Georgia. I forgot what team number we were. We're just having such a great conversation. We talk a lot about this, lack of trust and reliable information, right? And we talk about, because I come from China originally. I was born and raised, and there's significant lack of, this area has been lacking, and including we kind of touched some other age groups as well. Besides fertility, we're also talking about menopause and etc. I think that is one of the main things that we thought can be, a lot of work can be done there. And I think Cheryl also mentioned how, of course, we need reliable information from medical professionals, but medical professionals are, A, they're occupied, B, they're kind of hesitant on giving general opinions without knowing the patients, right? So I think that's what I was most impressed on the whole, regarding answering this question, because we went a bit contingent on other topics as well. Maybe Georgia and Cheryl, you can help me a bit on other answers we have for this question.
No, I don't really have anything to add. We did have a very lively conversation, and I'm not sure what is, that is one of the big topics that we've talked about, is just the lack of trust, because we get so many messages, and it's the drum that I will probably bang too much, but I think that women's bodies have been so politicized that it's hard to be able to give a message that doesn't seem like it has an agenda behind it from one side or the other. And it's become a minefield to even be able to talk about it, at least in the US, and especially around family planning, because there are so many implications to it. So that's why, sometimes it's like, I'm sure our OBs have a lot of information. They're just not sure how to present it to us, because without knowing what your religious background is, and even like your political background in the US, it's become very, they don't want to be controversial. Anyway, that's from a, obviously a US centric view of it. And so I'm really interested to hear, like, from other countries, what the barriers to awareness is. What are those cultural things that keep people from talking about it and getting the information that they need?
Actually, what you said is interesting, because one other thing I can tell you, for example, in Italy, is more the relationship with your partner. You fear to talk about this because the male part, let's say, tend to be willing to create family really late in their age in general. Then, of course, there are cases and cases. So somehow you feel that, oh my God, I need to wait. Maybe we don't talk about it, because you fear that you will break actually a situation. And this creates a lot of pressure. And then, of course, you arrive at a certain age and you're like, it's ticking, the clock. And you realize, okay, we need to talk about this because it's important. And sometimes you face bad news. And, that, I think it's being open in talking, and feel open in talking about this is part of the taboo, and is embedded in the culture, and how this topic is treated since the early age. At least from what I can see, I can hear. I know that, for example, but probably Laurence, you know more about this than me. Talking about Latin America, what I understood is that they are like the grandmother that are actually deciding a little bit and pushing for the girls in getting a family planned, and very soon. Yes. So again, it's really depending on the culture.
Yeah, I can talk about our team. It was team number 3, and actually one of the topic that we've been discussing is the peer-to-peer and the community. So the need for women to exchange with other women in the same situation in an anonymous way. At home, and I'm the co-founder of Clelia. I took over from her. So we definitely have a huge community, and it's definitely super active. So women are just like sharing anything, and I'm sure they are not sharing that with their sister or their mother. So a community is a big thing. Peer support. We discussed as well the fertility counselor or psychological side in general that can help both at the moment you're trying to conceive and you should maybe decide faster to go and see a specialist and you don't. So that counselor can act as a trigger to fast track the decision to go and see a fertility clinic. And then within treatment, the need for psychological support as well, just to overcome the failure and the stress on the couple, on the woman, but at the end on the couple, and how the man can also help the woman there. The third thing we've been discussing as well is awareness in general. And then we've been discussing like there are maybe like 2 big groups, like young women even before 18 years old, maybe around 15 during school, and then catch the boys as well at the same time, so that they also understand the fertility track of women in general. And then maybe between 20 and 30, which is the moment to start to talk about preservation of fertility, and maybe women are more receptive, or at least they should do it at that age and not over 30. And then the fourth thing we discuss as well is a trend is the employer involvement in paying part of the cost of the fertility treatment. That's already big in the US and starting not to be a problem. In Spain, by example, when you talk about that to companies, they're just like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Right? So there is a country readiness and maturity in that, but that's a trend because it's eventually it's there. Right?
Thanks so much. And the group number 4, there is somebody that was in the new group number 4.
I don't think there was a group number 4 because we were not enough. We had 3 groups.
Okay.
I don't know if all of them already spoke.
Yeah, okay. I think so, yes. Cool. Okay, so to summarize and wrap up, I think that what we all agree is that we should for sure create first a reliable material that is, agreed and at the general level, and then talk about this topic as early as possible, of course, modulating the message through the journey, and depending on the age and ability from the other side to accept and process the information. This communication should help in enhancing the pros in being aware and, let's say, somehow mitigate the cons, especially in terms of the stress that is generated by this topic, especially when you have a negative surprise, for instance, when you really keep on being aware. Who should be the one leading the conversation? I mean, multiple touch points, but probably your gynecologist should be the one to help you remember that this aspect should be controlled and checked regularly. But we also identify maybe that there is a gap there because we are missing the counseling part for women that will be more in control of their fertility, but not planning for a family in that specific moment, but being made aware that they have an issue. And in that moment, this person will be seeking probably for help from emotional perspective in order, to continue the journey. And we identify that there, having a community support this person and creating really an alliance between women and ladies, will probably make the difference. And in terms of let's say, making the difference, there should be a big involvement from WHO, of course, but also from government perspective at the local level, taking into consideration the local culture, but also trying to revolutionize a little bit, depending on the country, the status quo, and a role should be played by employers. Because for sure, one of the obstacles as of today in family planning for women has been their career plan, for instance. So having an employer being there to support, a fertility check, etc., in terms of the monetary and the economical part, will provide a big sign that actually being a woman, willing a career and becoming a mom is not a problem and is not an obstacle to become, to grow into the career and into the professional pathway as well. So I think this is more or less what was said today. Please let me know if I missed something that in your opinion is super important. But in any case, the board is there, is going to stay there also for the next focus group, which is going to be focused on actually the emotional support from the moment where you are aware that you are not fertile or you will be having issue probably in fertility, to the moment where you are you have an happy baby and you are a happy mom or not. And the last bit, the last focus group will be more on solutions. So when you discover what can you do, I mean, to tackle the problem. So this is going to stay there. You have the link, so you can always go back and input more if you like. I will try to group all of the different post-it and make sense out of it, and I will put everything in there so you can also see what I write. Put post-it and comments. I mean, the more you participate, the best it will be, because at the end we want to make something that will be valuable globally for all ladies and and families. So your help is really, really appreciated. So I don't know if you want to add something. Otherwise, I'll adjourn you and hopefully see in the next focus group. Good.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Thank you for
Thank you
organizing.
for joining.
Thank you very much. So much.
Bye bye.
To you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.